Hello dear students, today we are going to learn a clinical vignette on pemphigus vulgaris. A 42-year-old female presents to the dermatology clinic with 3-month history of painful oral sores that have made eating difficult, resulting in a 10-pound weight loss. 2 weeks ago, she began developing large blisters on her chest, back, and scalp. She notes that the blisters rupture very easily, leaving raw, agonizingly painful erosions that frequently bleed. On physical examination, her vital signs are stable. Oral examination reveals extensive ragged erosions on the buccal mucosa and soft palate, and white tongue. Examination of her trunk shows multiple flaccid, easily ruptured bulli and extensive areas of denuded erythematous skin. When lateral pressure is applied with a finger to normal appearing skin adjacent to the blister, the upper layers of the epidermis easily slough off. That is, the Nikolsky sign was positive. So this is the image of her oral mucosa showing the erythematous lesion and white tongue. Now come to the next slide, which is showing the skin biopsy of the patient. On H&E stain, normally the skin has two layers, the epidermis and dermis. Epidermis has four layers: basal, spinosum, granulosum, and corneum. Basal is the most deepest layer, and the corneum is the most superficial layer. These cells in the epidermis are attached with each other with the help of connections which are known as desmosomes. So these desmosomes held these epidermal cells together and prevent the loss of cohesion between the epidermal cells. In cases of pemphigus vulgaris, autoantibodies formed against the desmosomal proteins known as DSG3 and DSG1, which results in the destruction of desmosome and leads to the loss of cohesion between the two cells. It results in the acantholysis or loss of cohesion between the two cells of epidermal layer is known as acantholysis. Acantholysis is the characteristic feature of pemphigus vulgaris. Due to the prominent acantholysis, the stratum spinosum, uh, which has highest number of desmosome, get uh, get uh, get separated from the basal layer, the stratum basale, and it results in the formation of the suprabasal cleft. And on the base and the basal layer of the epidermis, that is the stratum basale, remains attached to the dermis, and this appear as tombstones. So the basal stratum basale appear as tombstones. So what we have seen first is loss of desmosome leads to acantholysis, which results in the formation of clefts, that is the suprabasal intraepidermal cleft and tombstoning of the of the stratum basale. So on HNE we can see these things, and grossly this cleft appear as blister when fluid accumulate inside the clefts. And come to the second image, which is the direct immunofluorescence image. This image is showing the IgG immunoglobulin deposits on the cell surface of keratinocytes. They bind with the desmoglein 3 or desmoglein 1. The autoantibody formation against the desmoglein 3 is more common in cases of pemphigus vulgaris, and desmoglein 3 is rich in the mucosal layers. Like oral mucosa, it is rich in desmoglein 3. Autoantibody against both desmoglein 3 and 1 is seen in skin involvement in cases of pemphigus vulgaris. Because skin is rich in desmoglein 1 as compared to desmoglein 3, and in skin you will see the more desmoglein 1 on the superficial layer, in the superficial layers of the epidermis, and more desmoglein 3 in the basal layer of the skin. And now come to the questions. The autoantibody driving this patient's condition are directed against which of the following structures? Option A, hemidesmosomes. Hemidesmosome involved in the bullous pemphigoid. Here the bulla or bulla is formed, which is very dense and not get easily ruptured because it is formed between the epidermis and dermis. And in this case, Nikolsky sign is negative. So the autoantibodies are formed against the BP180 and BP230 proteins of the hemidesmosomes. Hemidesmosomes are the connections between epidermis and dermis. So the blister or cleft is formed between the epidermis and dermis. So the cleft in this case is infrabasal. Option B, desmoglein 1 and 3. Yes, this is the correct option as we have already discussed. And in this molecular structure of desmosome between two keratinocyte 1 and 2, we can see the desmoglein which acts as a glue to adhere to keratinocytes, and this is the cadherin, that is calcium dependent proteins, and desmocollins are another family of proteins which is seen in desmosomes. Other important proteins are placoglobin, placofilin, and these placins are mainly involved in cases of paraneoplastic pemphigus. And these finally get attached inside with the intermediate filaments like keratin filaments. Option C, epidermal transglutaminase. This is seen in cases of celiac disease in which IgA antibodies are formed against the TTG, transglutaminase, tissue transglutaminase, and epidermal transglutaminase, and also against the endomysium. So it will cause the um, dermatitis herpetiformis, and in this case the blister is subepidermal or subbasal as seen in bullous pemphigoid, and you will see the granular deposit of IgA, not the fishnet pattern as we have already seen in cases of pemphigus vulgaris. Option D, the type 7 collagen. This is involved in epidermolysis bullosa acquisita. Antibodies are formed against type 7 collagen and blister is subepidermal. Option E, Plekin family. Plekin family, as we have already discussed, is involved in the paraneoplastic pemphigus. So option B is correct, desmoglein 3 and 1. Now come to the question 2. If a routine H&E stain were performed on a biopsy of one of her new blisters, what would be the most characteristic histological finding? As we have already discussed, we will see the suprabasal acantholysis leaving a single layer of intact basal cells attached to the basement membrane, which is known as tombstone layer. So the option C is correct option. Let's see the other options also. Option A, subepidermal blister with prominent eosinophilic infiltrate. This is the characteristic finding of bullous pemphigoid. Option B, neutrophilic microabscesses localized at the tips of dermal papillae. These abscesses are known as Portrier's microabscess, and these are characteristic findings of mycosis fungoides or Sézary syndrome. Option D, marked hyperkeratosis, parakeratosis, and elongation of rete ridges. This is the characteristic feature of psoriasis. Option E, band-like lymphocytic infiltrate at the dermoepidermal junction with dyskeratotic cells. This is characteristic feature of lichen planus. So the option C is correct option. Now let's move to question 3. The specific immunofluorescence pattern seen in the provided image is classically described as that pattern which we have already discussed is known as fishnet pattern or reticular pattern because it is appearing as fishnet, and the option D is correct, reticular or net-like intracellular deposition of IgG throughout the epidermis. So this is the correct option. Let's see the other options also. Option A, linear deposition of IgG along the basement membrane zone. This is seen in cases of bullous pemphigoid or epidermolysis bullosa acquisita. Option B, granular deposition of IgA in the dermal papillae. This is seen in cases of dermatitis herpetiformis, which is the skin manifestation of celiac disease. Option C, full house deposition of immune complexes. Full house means the deposition of IgG, IgA, and IgM along with the complement C3 and its components. It is seen in cases of SLE, the skin manifestation of SLE. Option E, shaggy, discontinuous granular deposition of IgM. This is seen in cases of erythema multiforme. Let's see the question number 4. Which of the following clinical features strongly distinguishes this patient's condition from bullous pemphigoid? So the bullous pemphigoid has a thick blister which usually do not involve the oral mucosa and involve the skin mainly, and these are seen in the flexor aspects of the body, and Nikolsky sign is negative. So let's see each option one by one. Option A, the presence of intensely pruritic, tense blisters that do not rupture easily. This is the feature of bullous pemphigoid. Option B, prominent involvement of the oral mucosa and positive Nikolsky sign. Yes, this is the correct option because this is the classic feature of pemphigus vulgaris. So option B is correct. Option C, symmetrical distribution of extremely itchy vesicles in the extensor surface. This is seen in cases of dermatitis herpetiformis, which is the feature of celiac disease. Option D, an association with underlying celiac disease. No. Option E, complete sparing of mucous membranes. No, complete sparing of mucous membranes uh, is not the feature of pemphigus vulgaris. Now come to the next question. Question number 5. What is the fundamental immunological mechanism according to the Gall-Coombs classification driving the destruction of this patient's epidermis? So let's see each option one by one. Type 1 hypersensitivity. It is IgE mediated mast cell degranulation. It is seen in allergic reactions like urticaria. Option B, type 2 hypersensitivity reaction. Yes, antibodies binding directly to the fixed tissue antigen. Yes, this is the correct option because IgG antibodies directed against the TSG3 and TSG1, and these are the antigens which are present on the epidermis, and IgG antibodies bind directly to these antigens. So type 2 hypersensitivity is the correct option. Option C, type 3 hypersensitivity, that is the deposition of circulating immune complexes. This is seen in cases of leukocytoclastic vasculitis like Henoch-Schönlein purpura or polyarthritis nodosa. Type 4 hypersensitivity. Type 4 hypersensitivity is a T cell mediated hypersensitivity, and this is also further divided into the four types, that is the 4A, 4B, 4C and 4D. 4A is commonly seen in cases of contact dermatitis and in tuberculin reaction, and 4B, which is Th2 mediated along with eosinophils, is seen in drug related or drug induced uh, uh, eosinophilic syndrome, that is DRESS. 4C is CD8 positive cytotoxic T cell mediated, and this is seen in cases of Stevens-Johnson syndrome or toxic epidermal necrolysis, or in cases of fixed drug eruptions. 4D is the T cell plus neutrophil. This is seen in cases of acute generalized exanthematous pustulosis or EJAP. So option E, direct bacterial toxin mediated cleavage of the stratum granulosum. No, this is the case of staphylococcal scalded skin syndrome. So option B is the correct option. Now move to the next slide, which is the differentiating slide between the three most important blistering disease of the skin. The first is pemphigus vulgaris, second is pemphigus foliaceus, third is bullous pemphigoid. Pemphigus vulgaris and foliaceus autoantibodies form against the desmosomal proteins. In cases of vulgaris, the autoantibody against the DSG3 and DSG1, and in cases of foliaceus, only the DSG1 is involved. However, in cases of bullous pemphigoid, the autoantibody formation is against the BP180 and BP230 antigens of the hemidesmosomes. And the blisters in cases of pemphigus vulgaris is suprabasal, and in cases of pemphigus foliaceus it is more superficial because the DSG1 is located more superficially in the epidermis. So the blisters are very superficial, that is subcorneal or subcorneal in the subcorneal layer. And in cases of bullous pemphigoid, hemidesmosomes are seen between the epidermal dermal junction. So the blisters are formed at the subepidermal layer. Blisters of pemphigus vulgaris are flaccid and get easily ruptured, and in cases of pemphigus foliaceus, blisters are very superficial, form crust easily, and rupture easily. Blisters of However, the blisters of bullous pemphigoid are dense and not get easily ruptured. Mucosa is commonly involved in cases of pemphigus vulgaris, and the mucosal involvement is usually absent in cases of pemphigus foliaceus, and also not seen and the involvement of mucosa is also not seen in cases of bullous pemphigoid except in few cases. The direct immunofluorescence test in cases of pemphigus vulgaris will show the intercellular fishnet pattern, and um, in cases of pemphigus foliaceus, this similar pattern can be seen, but it is more superficial as compared to the pemphigus vulgaris. However, in cases of bullous pemphigoid, the deposition is linear and it occurs at the basement membrane zone level. Now come to the next slide. What are the take home messages? So pemphigus vulgaris is an autoimmune intraepidermal blistering disease caused mainly by the autoantibodies against the desmoglein 3 plus minus desmoglein 1, and it commonly begins with the painful oral erosions followed by flaccid skin blisters with a positive Nikolsky sign. On histopathological examination, you will see the suprabasal acantholysis with characteristic row of Tombs stones, that is this stratum basal layer forming the Tombs stones. On direct immunofluorescence test, the intercellular deposition of IgG or C3 forms a fishnet pattern or reticular pattern, which is diagnostic gold standard for the pemphigus vulgaris. Treatment options include rituximab and corticosteroid. However, infections and treatment toxicity are the major concerns which causes the morbidity and in some cases causes the mortality. So this is all for today. Thank you.